So let's get into functions a little bit more, like print. What you'll see if you go on Canvas is that there's a link from our homepage in Canvas to what's called a function reference. The function reference is going to have pages that look like this, where it has information about each function. And specifically, it'll have a description of the function. Syntax is an example of how it's supposed to be used. It will have an example of that being used, and it will have parameters. Parameters are the things that we put into functions. It's what goes in the parentheses. So if I say parameters, it's a space inside those parentheses that does something. You may also hear me say arguments. And those will seem like they're synonymous, but if you think of like a parking lot, if I have a parking lot that has 4 parking spaces, right? Each of those can accommodate a car. The parking spaces are the parameters in that parking lot. They're places where I can park a car. The arguments are the cars themselves going into those spaces. So that's how parameters and arguments are related. You'll hear me use those both with functions. So print takes a parameter that is some kind of object. You can print anything. I just showed you can print a string, you can print a number. You can also print lists. You can print objects. You can print anything in Python can be printed, which is kind of useful. You can put a function inside print, and it'll print the results of that function. So there's a lot you can do. Functions are coming in 2 specific kinds of flavors. It's important because it will determine how you use that function. And I will tell you, every time I introduce a new function, I will tell you which kind it is. But some functions do something, like print. Print does something. It prints it out. It's active. Other types of functions, they still kind of do something. They do some kind of work, but they don't do anything on the screen. They return something. And when I say return something, what that means is, let's say I have a function that takes 2 numbers as parameters. I give it a 5 and a 3, and its whole job is to add those together and send them back. So it'll take 5 and 3, add them together, and it'll return 8. Where does the 8 go? It goes back to Python. It goes back to your program. And if you don't do something with it, it disappears. So what can you do with something that gets returned to Python? You can put it in a container, a variable, or you can send it straight to a do something function like print, where it prints it out. Okay, so I'm going to introduce you to your second function of the day. And I'm going to, let's simplify this. I'm going to get rid of that. Okay, so print, hello, my name is Bill. Right here, I'm going to introduce you to another function, and it's called input. Input gathers input from your user. Who's your user? It's the person using your program. Sometimes that's you. Most often in this class, you are the user. You're going to run the program, and then you're going to interact with that program. So if I say input, what is your name? Input is a do something and a return something function. It's actually both. Watch what it does when I run this. See how it says, hello, what is your name? It prints what I have in the parentheses to the screen. But what it does, what you'll notice, is that it didn't print the greeting. Why not? Because it's waiting for me. I'm now the user of this program. And what I need to do is I need to tell it my name. So if I tell it my name and I hit enter, now it's a coincidence that I just happened to type what it said there. If I say Dave, it'll still say my name is Bill because that's what's in the string greeting container. Okay, so what does input do? It prints something to the screen called the prompt. That's what the parameter is called. The prompt is typically a string. Does not have to be a string. Typically a string. And it gets printed to the screen, and then it waits. So at the end of line 3, it pauses until the user does something. It's waiting. Whatever the user types in gets returned. Now, right now, I'm not doing anything with it, so it just goes away. If I return something from a function and I don't capture it or do something with it, it just goes away. So maybe I want to put that in a variable. I'll call it str input. So now, whatever the user types in response to what is your name gets put in here. And then if I want to, I can print that out just like this. Okay, so it gets put into a container and then I print it out. So if I do this, I say, hello, what is your name? Dave. And then it prints whatever I typed. And then it says my name is Bill. Now, if I want to get really fancy, I can do this. So now what's happening? Let's track this program. It prints hello. And then it asks, what is your name? Whatever I type gets put into str input. Then str input gets printed. And then it says str greeting equals my name is, that string, plus whatever I typed. And then it prints it out. So let's run this. Hello, what is your name? Dave. And then it says Dave, and then it says my name is Dave, because I added that to the str greeting. So if I take a string and another string and I add them together, all it does is smush them together. That's useful. So that's something you can do. You can add two strings together, just like that. So a function either does something on its own, or it returns something. Input returns whatever the user types. Okay? Input returns whatever the user types. So here's a few more functions. The type function will tell you, if you give it as a parameter the object, a variable, it will tell you what type of data that is. So if I look at this in code, let's get rid of that. So if I have this string, oops, I don't need those. There we go. And if I have int age equals 50, and if I have FL GPA equals 1.8, that was my GPA in high school, not lying. I didn't do well in school. Ironic, isn't it? So if I print, I want to print the type of the variable. Now, if I just say type int age, because I want to find out what type that is, if I run that, notice it does nothing. I don't have any print statements here. Type is a return something variable. So it returns the type, but it doesn't have anywhere to go. I'm not catching it in another container. I'm not printing it. So here's what I can do. It's something that is a nice shortcut that you can do in a lot of programming language. It's called nested functions. And all that means is we put a function inside another function. So I have type. I give it int age, and this returns something. When it returns it, it goes straight into the parent as its parameter or as its argument, and it prints it out. So when I run this, it will tell me that int age is an int. So if I say str text, it'll tell me it's a string. And obviously, if I say flgpa, it will tell me that it's a float. Okay? So that's what type does. But type just returns something. It does not print anything. Now, input prints something and then waits and still returns something as well. So it does both. So another function, the input, right? The input is, now, one thing you need to remember about input is that input has a prompt. The prompt is what gets printed to the screen. So that is the parameter. It's the prompt. What the user types in response to the prompt is what gets returned. So a lot of people that I've seen will do something like this. Equals input, my name is Bill. Because they get confused and they think that typing this here as the prompt will mean that that gets put into that container. But it doesn't. What gets put into the container is whatever the user types in response. So if I print str text and then I run this and they say, well, oops, I didn't want to debug that. They run this and it says my name is Bill. They'll think, it says my name is Bill, but then it doesn't do anything. Well, it's waiting for a response. This should be a question so that people can respond to. So whatever I type is what gets returned. So don't confuse the prompt with what gets returned. What gets returned is whatever the user types, that gets put into the variable or returned, and then in this case printed. Okay, so just a word of caution on input.